Hello, my name is Ian Currey and this is Thinking Out Loud. How curious are you? Do you ever wonder where those sayings we all hear from time to time come from? How about this one? Eat, drink and be merry. And sometimes, for tomorrow we die is added on the end. Or what about this one? The worst they can do is kill you. Sometimes when we stop and think about everyday sayings, they are rather strange, aren't they? Come on, let me tell you what I think. Recently, I asked a few friends and posted a question on a few social media sites asking, what one object do you value most? Almost all the answers were more or less the same, with one or two notable and fun exceptions. Most of the responses revolved around memories, mostly pictures or perhaps a specially marked up Bible or something that has huge sentimental connection. Only a very few followed my own train of thought and latched onto something that would help make more memories in the future. I'd half wondered if valuing my camera that captures memories was a good idea. I will say, in the heat of the moment, certain things do get salvaged rather more quickly than others. During the time our house was flooded, we did indeed grab photograph albums first. But in a previous lose-it-all moment, when the ship we were on sank, grabbing anything really wasn't an option. For me, I think the one thing that survived through all of the disasters we've been through showed up in the treasure chest recently in one of these videos. Do you remember? Yes, it's my wedding ring. This ring represents a lot of memories and also represents choices Hillary and I have made together in the past and will, I expect, make together in the future. So the ring is the thing I think I would salvage because of what it represents. Now, how do those quotes and sayings we talked about relate to that? Well, rather a lot of sayings we use in modern speech come from the Bible. So we see some of them in the Old Testament, thousands of years even before Christ, and others pop up in the New Testament, or we find Jesus himself quoting them. Let me show you. Here we find Jesus talking to a few thousand people at the same time, and they all seem to be milling around in Jerusalem. There's some interesting detail here that tells us that there were so many people, they were treading on each other. Meanwhile, the crowds grew until thousands were milling about and stepping on each other. It's quite a crowd. And if you're curious enough to wonder where the crowd was and why they might be in the same place at the same time, you could take a look at the chapter before this. But today I'll leave you to do that later. This whole chapter is full of Jesus speaking, and while all of these people are milling around, it really doesn't seem like a great place to be having a nice day out sitting at the feet of Jesus. You know, I think perhaps wanting to have been in some of these situations is idealized rather a lot, don't you? Luke, the author, must have had a fun time keeping up with all that was going on. It seems like a boarding process on a busy flight or something to me, where about 10 things are going on at once. People can sometimes be stepping on each other there too. There are some fun clues, though, to how this day is playing out, and also a lot of these little one-liners that have stuck around all these years later. Some of what Jesus says seems to be quite specific to the people he's with, while other sections are more directed at everyone. Reading these chapters again shows that the whole scene is actually quite chaotic. I love how in the middle of all this, someone called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me." I can almost see Jesus rolling his eyes, can't you? Here's Jesus speaking about some of the trickiest parts of faith, and someone yells a question about a family feud. Jesus seems to take it in his stride, though, and says, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?" And then right away gets back into the conversation he's been having and his train of thought. But the very next verse is interesting. Look, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. So in a way, if that heckler hadn't yelled out the comment about his feud with his brother over that inheritance, we might never have had such a great one-liner as, life is not measured by how much you own. Certainly when it comes to things, many of my friends responded to my question with, stuff can be replaced. Memories and family are the important thing. Well, maybe. This week I met an elderly couple who had both been diagnosed with a serious medical condition. Now, instead of staying home and feeling sorry for themselves, they handled things in a rather different way. They had sold their house and most of their possessions, and were now going on an extreme adventure while they still could. That's rather risky, isn't it? But I expect it's a lot of fun. And while we were talking, one of the couple commented, "Eat, drink and be merry," right? And I almost completed the verse where that quote comes from, but I didn't, and it probably wouldn't have been helpful, I don't think. The quote actually appears in the Bible, and it's there several times, but here in the book of Luke, it relates to a story Jesus is telling in the middle of that huge crowd. Let's have a look. Then he told them a story. A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He said to himself, "What should I do? I don't have room for all my crops." Then he said, "I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, 'My friend, you have enough stored away for your years to come. Now take it easy. Eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you've worked for?' Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God." So it looks like this rich farmer has spent his whole life worrying about how to retire and how to be rich without taking the time to have rich relationships, and especially a rich relationship with God. Jesus goes on to talk about doing the right thing and not worrying about the stuff of life. I love verse 25 that says, "Can all your worries add a single moment to your life?" Stop worrying about things that don't really matter. But there is so much buried in this chapter, isn't there? So many variations on this one short story can easily be food for thought for a long time, I'm sure. For example, don't get so busy with stuff that you miss the important things in life. Or don't neglect relationships while being too busy. Or another way might be saying, find time to be with God. Or as Jesus says, have a rich relationship with God. Making good choices about how we spend our effort and time, and how we spend our money, and how much time we give to things that ultimately are not important at all is a really big challenge, isn't it? I know that working hard is important, and being faithful to tasks and people, especially those that we love and care for, is vital. But getting that balance right is never easy, is it? Eat, drink, and be merry. And that's a statement that can be taken two ways too, of course. On one hand, enjoying life is important, but on the other, doing so at the expense of making sure relationships are maintained, both with others and especially with God, is vital. Well, thanks for watching today, and if you've enjoyed this video, click on that subscribe button and let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, goodbye.